Happy 2025 and welcome to the Fantasy Forecast MVP show with Grindberg and Biggs. He is Grindberg, I be Biggs, and we are here to talk about our league winners, our fantasy MVPs, who hopefully are yours too all year long. We said that we were building champions and that we hoped you win, and hopefully right now, because you listen to us, you've been swimming in cash and putting on your championship belts and sticking your trophies on your shelves and such, because we've been doing the same damn thing. Welcome to the Fantasy Forecast with Grindberg and Biggs.
Yeah, what a season it was, Biggs. I know you're a champion. I know I'm a champion, and I'm damn sure that all of our viewers have got some sort of foot in the ring on a championship here. So let's talk about it, Biggs. How did your season go?
Well, very, very, very well. I found a lot of places where I can improve. I found a lot of places where I was dead on, and we'll get more into that in future upcoming shows, talking about some of our hits and misses. Today, we're just here to talk about our league winners, our fantasy MVPs at the different positions, guys that we had on our rosters that carried us to the championship. There is a lot of correlation between who we were telling you guys to draft and to pick up and what we are seeing in our championship league. So, Mike, why don't you kick it off and give us a quarterback, MVP quarterback that helps you win a league. I know who you're going to talk about, but tell the viewers.
Okay, so before the season kicked off, I confidently predicted that. Specifically this take, he would finish as a top 8 quarterback and take home the Offensive Rookie of the Year honors, which he hasn't done just yet, but I think he's a shoo-in for that honor. And so far, he's exceeded every expectation with over 3,500 passing yards, 25 touchdowns, and just 9 interceptions through 16 games. I know he's played 17 now, but he's quickly earned the trust of his team and has proven he's just more than a talented rookie. He's got dual threats, over 800 yards rushing, 6 rushing touchdowns. He's made a fantasy football juggernaut, firmly establishing himself among the elite quarterbacks. Like I said, 3,500 passing yards, 25 touchdowns passing, 70% completion rate, which is remarkable for a rookie, 4-game winning drives. He tied the most rookie game-winning drives of more than 10-point comebacks, showcasing his poise under pressure. Daniels has been everything a fantasy manager and fans had hoped for and more, with a top 8 finish, a Pro Bowl appearance, and the Offensive Rookie of the Year shoo-in award coming his way. His resume is just building. He's the cornerstone for the Commanders team, and he's going to be there for years to come. That rookie, he's turned into hype, and now it's history. So gotta love those Jaden Daniels takes, and he was an MVP for me, Biggs.
Absolutely. I was an early adopter of Jaden Daniels, having watched him as a freshman and sophomore at Arizona State. I lightly followed his career because I'm not a huge Sun Devils fan, but watched him migrate to LSU, who I tend to watch pretty carefully. I have family down there, love the team, have been a fan for a long time, and I love Jaden Daniels when he was working his magic down there. Early adopter in the 2024 year because the Raiders were looking to draft a quarterback, and he was the one that I wanted. And there was one thing that separated him from being my number one guy going into the combine and the draft season, and that was his weight. And there was a specific weight threshold that we didn't know if he would hit at the combine, and all he had to do was weigh over like 205 pounds, and we knew that he was going to be a force, and he absolutely did. And he hit that metric. We knew, and we started pumping him up from that point on. So hopefully you guys all drafted him. I believe that we were saying in our pre-draft stuff that we want him to be your second drafted quarterback, and you could probably have him in round 11 or 12. Don't check my numbers on that, but I feel pretty strongly that that's where we had him at. And then Mike in his bold predictions was like, yeah, he's going to be a top 8 guy. And he absolutely was that. He was my co-MVP. We do play a lot of super flex, and we had a draft at the expo. It was a very late night, early morning draft, 4 a.m, and I took Jaden Daniels with the 104, and got like completely crapped on by the people who were in that living room with us, because I was taking Jaden Daniels in August at 104, and I won the league. And he is I won the league with Jaden Daniels, Bryce Young, and oh no, it wasn't CJ Stroud. Who was the other one? Sorry, he derail it like this. I forgot Kyler Murray, Bryce Young, and Jaden Daniels. And Jaden Daniels was the quarterback 4 in that league. I drafted him at the 104. We had to play 3 quarterbacks every week. So he was absolutely my co-MVP. My other MVP, my other co-MVP is none other than the Bake Show, Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Now, I mentioned in the show that he is one of the guys that I have done a complete 180-degree turn on Baker Mayfield. Way back when he was drafted, the Cleveland Browns drafted him, and Saquon Barkley fell to number 2 with the Giants. And I criticized the Browns at the time, saying that if they really wanted to change their fortunes, they would have drafted Saquon with the first pick and let somebody else deal with Baker Mayfield. And he seemed to, good Lord, he seemed to kind of make that kind of play out over the first 4 or 5 years of his career. He did get a career resurgence. He signed with the Los Angeles Rams, came in, beat the Raiders with like no knowledge of the playbook or whatever, just kind of showing what he can do as an improvisational football brain with the ball in his hands. And then he goes to Tampa Bay, and he works with Dave Canales and had an absolute breakout year in 2023. We were hoping that we would see more of that in 2024, but with Dave Canales not there, we didn't know if we could expect that, and he absolutely smashed. Then when it came down to it, the last 3 weeks of the season, playoff weeks in fantasy football, Baker Mayfield was an absolute monster. And every championship team that I have that didn't have Jaden had Baker Mayfield on it. There was one team that I didn't have either of them that I actually won, but there was some combination of both of those every time that I won. Even in best ball, I won money with both of them, like after drafting them in best ball. So Baker Mayfield, Jaden Daniels, my quarterback MVPs, league winners for the fantasy season.
Absolutely. Both guys you could usually get in the 10th round or later, and they ended up being top guys that were elite and carried our teams to championships. So great call on Baker Mayfield, Biggs. And let's get into the wide receivers. And I'm going to start here with my guy, Ladd McConkey, pegged as one of my guys to watch. We both had very high hopes for Ladd McConkey, and he absolutely delivered after his standout Week 17 performance, catching 8 passes, 94 yards, 2 touchdowns against the Patriots. His season's numbers is nothing short but spectacular. 77 receptions, over 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. The Chargers got him at the number 34 pick, and there's a lot of teams that are probably biting themselves in the butt for not taking him, like, the Panthers. And
they should have listened to us.
The Bills. And, there's a couple other teams that had some guys in there, like, Keon Coleman, Xavier Legette, all these. Yeah, the Chiefs as well. Worthy is a guy too that he got up there at the end of the year, but he didn't compete against Ladd McConkey. 7 touchdowns, 9 consecutive games with 50 plus yards, a feed-only match this season by Malik Neighbors, and 17 fantasy points per game as an average. In the stretch here, he's been filling in big time here. And in a season filled with big name rookies, McConkey has managed to shine brighter than most of them. His combination of volume, production, consistency, along with the strong connection with Justin Herbert, makes him one of the most promising young stars in the NFL. As his career progresses, the only direction for McConkey is up. He's the future fantasy football cornerstone you'll want to build around. McConkey, proving that sometimes the best picks come in the second round.
Yeah, and early in like preseason in the draft season, we told you guys Ladd McConkey is going to be Justin Herbert's best friend. He has the skill set, he has the toolbox to absolutely be that guy, and he went out and he totally showed it, and made us look real good. Hashtag dads for Ladd. Now, he's not my wide receiver MVP, and I'll tell you why. It's because in the leagues that I was able to draft Ladd McConkey, I had a high enough draft pick that the rest of the team around him wasn't necessarily very competitive. So my league winner, my wide receiver MVP is another rookie. And if you recall way back a few minutes ago when I said that I love LSU guys, Brian Thomas Jr. was somebody that I had in quite a few of my Campus to Canton leagues, simply because he was an LSU wide receiver. And last year I had a lot of fun watching him run up the score at LSU in my college leagues. So he carried over to a bunch of those leagues. So I knew about him. Now, I wasn't as high on him as Schultz was. I wasn't as high on him as Greinberg was. But he was a value for me later on in drafts, a better value than McConkey was, simply because I was grabbing him in much later rounds than McConkey. So when it came down to it, and all of a sudden I find these teams where I'm drafting in the high draft rounds, I'm grabbing good guys, and then I'm taking Brian Thomas Jr. And other guys like Jalen McMillan at value spots, those guys helped me to get through the playoffs. And Brian Thomas Jr. specifically. And the reason I say that is because for weeks 15, 16, and 17, Brian Thomas Jr. in your fantasy playoffs outscored Justin Jefferson. He was a better asset for your fantasy championships than Justin Jefferson. Now, thankfully, there is a championship team that I had both Justin Jefferson and Brian Thomas Jr. But yeah, Brian Thomas Jr. absolutely my MVP. He won me the Dukes Classic. He won me a few other leagues, including the one that I had Justin Jefferson in. And Brian Thomas Jr. absolute smash.
Yeah, man, he was an absolute smash this year, just like Ladd, just like Jaden, and just like Baker Mayfield. And then we're going to get into the second half of our MVPs this year after we hear from our sponsor, and that's the Fantasy Sports Advice Network. It's a community. You better get on the website. It is growing. It is growing bigger and better than we ever expected, and it's going to really get some traction this offseason. So let's hear.
We are here. We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to FantasySportsAdvice.com today.
What up, Chelsea? Big yawn.
Schultz needs cookies and apple juice. All right, so let's get into our running backs. I'll start with this one. My MVP at the running back position was Jahmyr Gibbs. Over the course of the fantasy playoffs, Jahmyr Gibbs, who I had in a ton of dynasty leagues, he scored 28, 25, and 25 points in the dynasty playoffs. If it wasn't, I say if it wasn't for him, but I mean, when you are running into championships and you got Jaden Daniels, Jahmyr Gibbs, Brian Thomas Jr., Baker Mayfield, and then my tight end MVP, it's easy to win leagues with those guys, especially with the performances they had in the last 3 weeks of the season. So Jahmyr Gibbs, he benefited from the fact that David Montgomery got hurt and was out, but up until that point, Jahmyr Gibbs was still having a smash season. I can very easily see him being RB1 or 2 next year going into drafts. And I'm glad I'm going to have him for a long, long time in Dynasty.
Yeah, what a great situation he's in. He outperformed Bijan both years, and that's with David Montgomery in the lineup. So, depending on what format you're looking at, Bijan and Gibbs are 1 and 2 this year, and it's important to see that behind obviously Saquon Barkley, but
he also provided me with the best nickname in the business,
Jahmyr Biggs. Let's go. And I'm going to talk about my MVP at the running back position. And, for the past 2 seasons, I've been pretty bullish on Chase Brown, and I'm thrilled to see him finally break out in a big way. After being pegged as a sleeper in 2024, Brown took full advantage of his opportunity with the Bengals backfield. And, he emerged as a true workhorse back, which a lot of people were skeptical of his situation. But, being a fellow Canadian, I knew he was built for that type of role. Given that he doesn't turn 25 until March, it's clear why I moved them up from the outside of my top 20 to inside my top 10 dynasty rankings this year. 23 touches per game he's RB3 in points per game scoring, fifth round pick to be an RB1. What a situation. And that's what we talk about when we talk about league winners, guys you get later on, or guys you get early on that prove to exceed value. And now for me, he's a top 10 dynasty asset. His performance outlook has elevated his from outside the top 20 now. Chase Brown's rise from a 5th round pick to an RB1 is a testament to his talent, his opportunity, and the classic case of why you should never overlook the underdogs in dynasty leagues. But in general, this situation here, he was a guy you got off the waiver wire earlier in the season, and we had him pegged on him numerous shows. So if you followed our advice, you would have been positioned very well with Chase Brown, and he's likely to remain a high-powered force in that offense with them having to, make room for contracts. So for Chase Brown, from a sleeper to a king, and that's what he did for me this year.
Yeah, we were high on him in a lot of our shows in 2023 over on a different network, and talked a lot about him. And opportunity is king in fantasy, and going into the 2024 season, fortunately for us, but unfortunately for people who were early owners of Chase Brown, the Bengals signed Zach Moss to a contract, and Zach Moss had a very, very high fantasy points per game played rate. When he was with Indianapolis and even with Buffalo, the few games that he got into, he scored very highly. He scored tons of points. The problem with him was that he was never really uninjured for a long period of time. So we told you guys to hang on to Chase Brown simply because Zach Moss was not going to be able to sustain an entire season. And as disappointed as we were that Zach Moss was named the RB1 in Cincinnati, we knew that it was just a matter of time for Chase Brown to emerge. So fortunately for the Bengals, he did, because Zach Moss, again, became unplayable. But hopefully they learn their lesson going into 2025, and Chase Brown is the guy that they're going to count on for 250 to 300 touches, because you guys are going to benefit when we start getting into our pre-draft stuff and redraft next year. Chase Brown's going to be a huge, huge value, and we're going to be all over it again.
Yeah, man. Okay, let's move on to tight end, Biggs. And we got a couple guys I know were very big hits, and I'm assuming, I haven't really even looked at the show sheet, but I could probably tell based off of my pick who your guy is going to be. So I'll let you have the floor. Talk about your
we know each other well enough to know exactly who the other one is going to take. And listening to some of Greinberg's post-championship content, I knew who his guy was going to be, because he was talking about him as tight end 1 as early as last December or January. Funny thing happened on the way to tight end 1ville. My guy, wound up being the tight end one, which even I didn't see coming. And I was high on this guy from the beginning, and that's Brock Bowers. And I took Brock Bowers absolutely everywhere. In redraft leagues, he was way down the list of, I mean, he had Sam Laporta ahead of him. He had other guys ahead of him. And I just kept smashing the Brock Bowers name. I had him in all of my rookie drafts. Like I have him in so many places. And it's not just because I'm a Raiders fan. It's just like we had him analyzed as wide receiver 4 of the class, and that's from the tight end position. So Brock Bowers is my co-MVP. My other MVP, and the reason that I say this is because in this Dukes Classic League that I won, I did not have Brock Bowers. I had Travis Kelce, and Travis Kelce wound up finishing the year as tight end 5, which it was a very disappointing year for Travis Kelce. But coming in at tight end 5, he did enough for me to not lose. And for that reason, he's a league winner for me. He's reliable at this point. He's not like blowing people out of the water, but if you're going to need 12 to 14 solid points every single week to keep the rest of your team afloat and then win based on spikes from our other MVPs like Brian Thomas Jr., et cetera, then Travis Kelce is in perfect position. Now, here's the thing about the tight end position. Everybody absolutely lost their minds about Mark Andrews. In the first 5 weeks of the season, Mark Andrews had 22 total points, 4-point-something points per game. From week 6 to week 17, Mark Andrews was averaging like 13 or 14 points per game and finished the season as tight end 6. That's how volatile the tight end position is, and that's how important it is if you want to play it that way, to have one of the top 3 to 5 guys who's going to give you that point total every single week. Because you have guys like Mark Andrews who are going to like make you cry for the first 5 weeks. And then you have guys like Jonnu Smith who you didn't see coming. And then somehow week 8, he starts to put it all together. And that the position is filled with guys like that. So you're going to want Brock Bowers or Sam Laporta or Travis Kelce or some guy that you know is going to – even Sam Laporta, it took him a while. So it's very hard to pinpoint one guy. Look at Chigo Okonkwo in the fantasy playoffs. Like it was almost like he just flipped a switch just simply for fantasy players. But Brock Bowers is my MVP because he got me there, and then he sustained throughout the rest of the playoffs, and it's, you know, we knew it was going to happen, and just not on the level it did. So Brock Bowers and Travis Kelce, thank you guys, my fantasy MVPs at tight end.
Well, I had a bold prediction to start this year, and I guess it wasn't bold enough because one of my 3 bold predictions on the fantasy forecast this year was Jaden Daniels' take, and then the Brock Bowers finishing as a top 5 tight end, and he finished it as a tight end 1. So I guess I wasn't bold enough with my take, but great situation, Biggs. Your Raiders are in great hands moving forward. Brock Bowers, love it. Love the call, and I love his situation moving forward. And a guy that got me to a lot of fantasy championships, a lot of semifinals, and it's a guy I've been high on for the last 2 years, and I've been all in on Trey McBride, and Biggs mentioned it earlier. His 2024 breakout season is everything that I hope for other than a bunch of touchdowns. After a solid 2023 season, McBride set franchise records in receptions by tight end. He's taken things to another level this year with over 100 receptions, over 1,000 yards, and just 1 touchdown. He was the tight end 2, and McBride has cemented his place as one of the NFL's most elite tight ends. He's the only second player in Cardinals history to reach 1,000 yards in his second season. McBride has consistently proven his worth, a true workhorse role, 104 receptions, 1,000 yards, 3 12-catch games, 123 yards in week 17 with 12 targets. His 2024 season is a story of growth, volume, and opportunity as the Cardinals top pass catching weapon. He's shown he can dominate in both terms of sheer volume and the ability to perform when needed. And I could see this regression of touchdowns happening next year. He's the tight end you can't ignore in your draft next year. And I loved, Trey McBride, what he did for my teams this year. And he, was a couple touchdowns out of that number one role. And that might happen next year. So let's go Trey McBride.
Yeah, it was funny because that last game on Saturday, I had a league that I was trying to win with Kyler Murray as my quarterback. And I had another league that I was trying to win with Trey McBride was one of my 3 tight ends that were in the lineup. And he had himself a banner day in that league. He had 30 points. But they go to overtime, and I tweeted out that I needed Kyler Murray to have a long drive and then hit Trey McBride in the end zone. I had an over 1.5 touchdowns prop bet out on Trey McBride too. So it was all culminating in this like fantastic, just champagne moment for me. And they get down to the goal line. They have their first and goal from the 5. Kyler finds McBride, zips the ball to him. It bounces off of McBride's helmet up in the air, and Ahkello Witherspoon makes a great play diving to snag the interception. That play right there, if it had gone into McBride's hands, would have given me 1 fantasy championship and a few $100s on a prop bet. I did win the one that I had Kyler Murray on. He did just enough, and then Jaden Daniels took me the rest of the way. But that was a huge play for me. I had a customer. I'm at work watching on my phone, and there's a customer right there in front of me, and I start screaming and spinning around. And just, no! And he's like, "What's going on?" I was like, "I can't. It's hard to explain." And he didn't know football, but that was a moment in my life that I likely won't ever forget. It would have been fantastic for McBride to catch that touchdown. But that, it still doesn't take away from the rest of his season, and also being the only person that Kyler Murray can find with the football.
Yes, because he's too short to find Marvin Harrison Jr. on the outs. So, Biggs, what a great MVP show we had. Our next show, we're going to be talking about our LVPs, guys that we had on our lineups that really hurt our teams, that we were higher on. So kind of like our misses. And then we're going to get into some fun shows, next week as far as our hottest takes of 2024, the ones that we hit the most. I got a bunch of our shorts that I compiled, and we're going to go through them. I'm going to surprise you on a couple of them, and then we're going to talk about our misses as well. So we take accountability here on the forecast. So when we talk about building you guys championships, we're doing that with all our might, and we're also going to talk about our misses as well, because we're not perfect, and we want to make sure that we stay humble and take accountability for our actions. And we're going to do both. We're going to praise our wins and we're going to praise our losses. And definitely both of us want some championships. So hopefully our viewers have too, and continue to follow us on the forecast. We're going to take a little bit of a lull in the middle of January here until the combine and the Senior Bowl ramp up. Biggs is going to be on location in a couple of those places. So I'm excited to see his action. We'll have to cut up some stuff for the network to get us on here to get some rookie intel on things. I know we're not a dynasty show, but we definitely want to make sure our viewers get some intel early and often. So Biggs, what do you got for us as we head into the off season, my man?
I just want to shout out. It was a great season. Shout out to Schultze behind the scenes, rifling through drawers and stuff like that. Tyler Bradley, founder of the channel, the Fantasy Football Advice Network, been a really big help in helping us grow and stuff. All of you viewers, can't say enough about you. Thank you for tuning in every show and coming in our live chats on Thursday nights and Sunday nights and Wednesday nights and all that stuff. You guys are really what drives everything. And so keep watching and all that stuff. There's a thing I like to say, we do the work so you don't have to. You do your job. You go watch your basketball games, your football, your baseball games, go play with your kids, whatever. And that whole time we're going to be behind the scenes creating analytics models and scouring newspaper articles and looking on fantasy points data suite and player profiler and stuff like that. We're going to do that work, and then we will be here for you when you have a decision to make, and we'll tell you what the most likely outcome of that is going to be. That's what we do. That's the value that we add to your fantasy experience. We hope that you've had fun winning and losing with us. Misses are great because it gives us a line on the kinds of places that we need to address to get better at what we're doing. So if you guys have any if you have any bad beat stories because of us, let us know that too, because just don't be a jerk about it, because ultimately you make the decision. We just provide you with the information to make that decision. But say you made a decision and it didn't turn out the right way, let us know about that. And then that way we can go and say, okay, well, I took this into consideration a little bit too strongly when really I should have been looking at this. So next time I'll look at these things instead of these things. And that's helpful to know. And it just makes us better for you. And that's what we're striving to do is build your champion teams. And so that's about it. Thank you guys for a great season, and keep following us. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, for our LVP show and then our season wrap up. So, man, what a great season, Biggs. Thanks for all the viewers. Schultze, shout out to you as always, and everybody on the network. Like Biggs said, thanks to everybody, Tyler, Corey, and all the people in the front office. Viewers, most important. Appreciate y'all. Have a great night, and we'll see you next time on the LVP show.
We are here. We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to fantasysportsadvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to fantasysportsadvice.com today.
So I got Trey McBride, 136 targets, 104 receptions.